With me right now to discuss this and what the dynamic of a conflict would look like is Mark Dubowitz, CEO of Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Mark, first off, President put 13 minutes into the speech. You expected something. Do you agree with me that it's got to be a separate address if we're going to take action there, or do you not see it as something that would be an Oval Office worthy?
Brian, I think he made the case for strikes on Iran.
Enough. That was enough for you?
I think he laid it out. I don't know what else there is to say. He said that this regime has been killing Americans for years and maiming Americans. It's killed 34,000 of its own people. It's building an intercontinental ballistic missile program, as the president said, which has only one address, which is American homeland.
What do you say to people who don't believe that?
Well, I refer them to U.S. intelligence reports over a number of years saying Iran has an active ICBM program. So there's no dispute that they do. The question is when will it be finished? And I don't think we want to wait until it's done before we do something, because then they can actually have a nuclear-tip ICBM targeting the homeland.
So the Gang of Eight was briefed yesterday, right? Jim Himes was among leadership. Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem Jeffries walked out and said, "I got a lot of questions still." And then Jim Himes goes, we're going to war, and I don't know why now. Like, what's significant now? What do you mean why? Does that blow you away? Number one, they're talking so freely about a top-secret briefing. And isn't that what the president's been saying on why he's kept Venezuela so tight in terms of his security clearance when you have people speak so haphazardly like that?
Look, Congress whines that the president is not briefing them. When he briefs them, then they leak. Then they come out of these. The Gang of Eight was established, Brian, precisely because it's the top 8 leaders in Congress who have the highest security clearance. They're getting briefed by Secretary Rubio and others, and they're supposed to keep that information private. And they walk out of these briefings right into television cameras. So it's one of the reasons the president doesn't want to brief them. It's one of the reasons that the president is not going to ask for a authorization of the use of military force by Congress, because he's going to use executive authority to protect the American homeland.
So the president's not convinced there's somebody to take over. He goes, how do I know the next guy won't be worse? Is that a legitimate worry?
I don't think there's anyone worse than Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, who's been in power since 1989, the longest-serving dictator in the world, who's been responsible for killing and maiming literally hundreds of thousands of people, including Americans. So I don't think there's anyone worse. I think what the president may be contemplating is a Venezuela situation where he orders strikes, he takes out Khamenei, maybe his successor, Moshtaba, who's also Khamenei's son, and then says to the guys who remain, you got a choice. I can either eliminate you or you play ball.
Do we have the firepower, in your estimation, to pull off a sustained operation?
I think we have the firepower, and we particularly have it because it's going to be a joint strike with our Israeli allies, who demonstrated during the 12-day campaign last year an incredible ability. This is a tiny country, Brian, of 10 million people with a small air force and a small intelligence community, and look what they did against the Iranians last year. Can you imagine what the United States could do alone, and can you imagine what the United States could do in cooperation with the Israelis?
And they need refueling in the sky, right? And we now have refueling tanks to be able to do that. They would even be more dangerous. So with the 30,000 people, the president came out and said, hey, I got your back, continuing to protest. And they end up just being brutally murdered, it seems, some in their hospital beds. That's not been emphasized. We're meeting with them tomorrow about a nuclear program that we set back already. I find it befuddling that it's not clear that ballistic missiles have to be on the table, along with some type of confirmation you can't kill anybody or else we're going to bomb you.
Look, I think we started this discussion with the Iranians, and the president made it very clear: nuclear, missiles, terror. Release the 50, 60,000.
What do the Iranians say, though? The Iranians say no, only nukes.
They say no. We're only going to discuss nukes. And now the president says in the State of the Union, I want to hear from the Iranians that they say they won't develop nuclear weapons. Well, but guess what, Brian? The Iranians have said that. We will not develop nuclear weapons, but the regime lies, and it's been building a nuclear weapons program for many, many years. So it's not enough for them to say it. We have to strip them of all capabilities, zero enrichment, zero reprocessing, full dismantlement, for this to be even serious, and it can't just be a nuclear deal.
I want you to hear what General Keane said, who I think is talking with the president pretty regularly.
In my judgment, we should do nothing to extend the life of this regime when we have an historic opportunity right now, given it's so weak and fragile, to finally set the conditions for a regime collapse. We have never been in this position in 46 years. And the only reason we're in this position because of Netanyahu and Trump, the 12-day war, and what they did to weaken Iran, not just militarily, but psychologically, politically, And as we all know, they're already in a tank economically. This is a fragile, vulnerable nation.
Is he right?
He is right. I mean, I don't call it a 12-day war, 12-day campaign. You know why? Because it's been a 47-year war of the Islamic Republic against America. They've been killing, maiming our civilians, our diplomats, our troops.
What did they do in Iraq? How much did they hurt us in Iraq?
They were responsible, according to U.S. Defense report, they were responsible for killing and maiming over 1,000 Americans. I mean, they sent our boys and girls back in body bags. And so this is a regime, General Kane's exactly right. I mean, it's a regime that the only solution to this is this regime has to be brought down. And it's not us. We don't need to bring it down ourselves. We need to provide support to the millions of Iranians who've been on the streets really since 1999, yelling death to the dictator. President Obama, Bush, Biden, and now Trump. He got our back. And President Trump said in January during the protests, take to the streets, take over your institutions. We got your back. It's a red line he set. It's a red line he has to enforce.
I agree. When Jim Himes comes out and says, why now? You know, why does this have to be done now? What is your answer, Mark Dubowitz?
Well, my answer is President Trump set a red line. He has to enforce it. Number two is Iran is reconstituting its nuclear program. President Trump is right. They're going at this place called Pickaxe Mountain, which is hundreds of feet underground. They're building enrichment facilities, centrifuge manufacturing. They're going to do weaponization thing. This thing is buried under a mountain. It's more dangerous than the Fordo facility that President Trump destroyed. And the Iranians haven't got the message. They are reconstituting. And before they are finished with that facility, and they have a facility that may be immunized against our ability to destroy it, we have to take it out now.
What did the CIA post yesterday on social media?
I thought that was really interesting, Brian. The CIA posted in Persian a message to Iranians to talk to them and come to them with information and secure links on how to do that. I think that's a message from the CIA and more broadly from the Trump administration that we're getting into the covert action game, into the influence operations game, and we're going to be working very closely with our Israeli allies because I think CIA and Mossad together is a very powerful combination.
What did the Mossad show you in the 12-day campaign?
Well, I think the Mossad demonstrated that they've deeply penetrated the entire Iranian security apparatus.
They were shooting from inside the country, weren't they?
From inside the country. They've recruited thousands of Iranian agents. These are Iranians who are working against the regime. There was a massive pool to recruit from because the majority of Iranians despise this regime. They were everywhere. They had numbers, addresses, names, photos of top commanders. They took out the senior IRGC command. They killed 14 nuclear weapons scientists literally in their beds and did significant damage to the nuclear program and the missile program. Again, tiny country with small air force, small intelligence capabilities. Now, let's join those capabilities with our capabilities, and we can do massive damage to this regime.
Mark, I can't list you top Iranian leaders, but I know anyone that's a threat gets jailed. Could the next Iranian leader be in prison right now? I mean, and could we do something? Remember we blew the doors off or the Israelis blew the doors off one of the infamous prisons? And I'm wondering if that could be the key.
There's no doubt that the next Iranian leader is somewhere in prison or somewhere in Iran. By the way, Brian, if you and I knew their name, they'd be already dead, which is why I think it's actually very important that Reza Pahlavi, the son of the late Shah, is out there. He's here in D.C. He's out there in the media. You know, it's important that he's here and he's not there because he'd be dead if he was there.
Do you think he is does he have the widespread support to lead that country?
I think he has widespread support to play a instrumental role in a transition. And he has said over and over again, I don't want to be the Shah. I don't want to be, an authoritarian monarch. I want to lead a transition, have a referendum, have elections, and maybe ends up as a constitutional monarch.
Because the MEK wants nothing to do with him.
No, and I think the MEK is deeply unpopular inside Iran. So I think it's very important. He's clearly popular. It's not just the chants from the streets and the videos that we saw. It's that he has a massive social media following. And Brian, this is really interesting. His social media following dropped by 80% when the regime shut down the internet. What does that say to you? It means that the social media following is mostly inside Iran, not outside Iran.
And it costs money for them to keep the internet off. So it's a strain on a terrible budget. It adds to the sanctions relief. Are you surprised that Russia had the military games last week, but for the most part, China's been quiet? Does that surprise you?
The Chinese have been helping the Iranians reconstitute their ballistic missile program. They've been getting in this precursor chemical for solid fuel Iranian rockets and missiles. And I think the game they're playing is stay out of the spotlight, don't be targeted by President Trump, but help rebuild this important member of the axis of aggressors. And China, Iran, Russia, North Korea. Iran is very important. If Iran goes down and we get a pro-Western government, that is a massive blow to Beijing and a massive blow to Moscow.
Here's Jason Crow, a warfighter himself, but a Democratic stalwart. Here he is.
But can we just admit here that regime change and nation building is not our core competency? That we spent 20 years, trillions of dollars, thousands of American lives. Both of them turned out poorly. I fought those wars. Again, millions of Americans fought those wars. The appetite for this type of military adventurism in the United States, when people can't afford their homes, can't afford groceries, is close to zero.
Your thoughts?
I don't think anyone's talking about nation building. I don't think anyone's talking about sending hundreds of thousands of mechanized U.S. troops to invade Iran. I think what we are talking about and what President Trump has demonstrated already on a number of occasions is using powerful, overwhelming U.S. military force, right, from the air, from the Navy, in order to strike Iran's most dangerous capabilities. Its ballistic missile program, its ICBMs that are going to target American homeland, its nuclear program. We don't want a theocratic, genocidal, anti-American regime with nuclear weapons. I'm sure many members of Congress believe that. And by the way, Brian, there is some irony. Many Democrats were calling on President Trump during the January protests could come to the rescue of Iranian protesters, and were condemning him for not doing it. And now that he's talking about doing it, now they're condemning him for doing it. So, I mean, Brian, welcome to Washington.
Yeah. More with Mark Dubowitz in a moment, including 4 years since the Russians invaded Ukraine. Where are we at now? Don't move. Brian Kilmeade Show. Mark Dubowitz is here, defensive democracies. It is the CEO of the Foundation for Defensive Democracies. Mark, let's pivot to a 4-year war in Ukraine. Zelensky says, I need Europe to do more, and I want the U.S. to stop believing Vladimir Putin. He does not want to stop. What is the condition of the Ukrainians?
Brian, it's been a brutal war. I mean, the Ukrainians have been fighting courageously. I mean, I think that, the two allies in the world that fight in their own defense and die in their own defense against common enemies are the Ukrainians and the Israelis. And I think we should be providing all the support we can. I think President Trump's right to try to unwind this war because Vladimir Putin has no intention of stopping. I mean, I just saw a statistic. I think it was 1.2 million Russian casualties in this 4-year war.
And that's at 365,000 deaths, roughly 25 to 35,000 a month. And he's not even picking up the bodies. He's not even returning. I mean, he's not interested. And the question is, he now has a draft, a regional draft happening. Does that show a desperation?
Well, I think it shows a desperation, but I also think it shows Putin's commitment. Putin doesn't care how many Russians die in this war, and he will keep throwing Russian bodies. I mean, this is the way the Russians fight, Brian. I mean, this is the way they fought during World War II. Stalingrad, right? This is how they stopped the Nazis. They just kept throwing Russian bodies at it, and just to try to overwhelm the enemy through sheer attrition. I think in this case, Putin is returning back to that playbook, and I don't know how many more Russians he can throw at this, but he seems to have a never-ending supply. And
there's 15% of the Donbass that the Ukrainians are holding on to. Most experts believe they're going to hold on to it. I mean, they can't take it. And they are not taking much in the battlefield ever since they got cut off from Starlink.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, I think Starlink is, could be a game changer for the Ukrainians because a military has to communicate. If you can't communicate, you can't mobilize. If you can't mobilize, you can't fight. So if they get Starlink and Starlink is back on and the Ukrainians have access to it, I think that is a game changer. But look, I think at the end of the day, the only way to bring this war to a conclusion, and it has to be brought to a conclusion, is that President Trump has got to use overwhelming American economic power and diplomatic power against Russia. And I mean massive sanctions. Talk about Congress. I mean, the one thing Congress has done well is, there's over 85 U.S. senators who've co-sponsored a sanctions bill targeting Russia and really going after the lifeblood of the Russian economy, which is its energy sector.
Well, they did work on getting India off the dole. I want you to hear what Nancy Pelosi said last night.
Then he goes on to some foreign policy, after drifting and all the rest, some foreign policy. Did he spend a sentence and a half on Ukraine, where democracy is at stake, where American people want us to be there on the side of democracy.
And it's the 4-year anniversary of the invasion today.
Today is the 4-year anniversary. You think he would have risen to the occasion. But his occasion, as I said in that picture in the cabinet room, but pointing to him that day, I said, with you, Mr. President, all roads lead to Putin. If I were president, it would never have happened. Well, you are president. You can stop it.
Well, your thoughts. I'm more pro-Ukrainian than the president is. I have no faith in Vladimir Putin. I think the president's getting there. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I think he is getting there. I'm with you. I mean, I think it's absolutely critical that we help defend the Ukrainians. And they're not asking for American troops, Ryan. They're not asking for us to fight and die in their own defense. They are fighting. And they're not fighting, I don't think, necessarily for, quote, democracy. I think they're fighting because they do not want to live under a brutal Russian dictatorship.
They want to be in the West. And by the way, today in the Wall Street Journal, they talk about a shadow war. There's been 151 actions against European countries since this war started 4 years ago. The Russians are saying we want to take on NATO to a degree.
I mean, when your enemy tells you that they want to kill you, listen to them. And Putin has said over and over again that he is going to reconstitute the Russian Empire, and that means not just Ukraine. That means moving into the Baltics. That means moving into Poland, and that's ultimately destroying NATO. And whether he does that militarily or through active measures and influence operations and political tricks, he's trying everything. He's throwing everything at it. And I think we're not here to defend Ukraine only. We are here to defend the West.
Well, part of the reason Venezuela went down is because he's diverted to Ukraine. Part of the reason Syria went down because he's diverted to Ukraine.
Exactly right.
And we'll see what else is happening because it's not going well in Ukraine for him. Mark Dubowitz, thanks so much. Fascinating time. Always great to get your insights and from your foundation. Brian Kilmeade Show.